US whiskey makers have lauded India's decision to slash tariffs on bourbon whiskey from 150% to 100%. The Distilled Spirits Council of the United States have thanked President Trump and Prime Minister Modi for their collaboration, as they believe this will pave the way for greater whiskey exports to India. In 2024, India was the 23rd largest export market for American whiskies. American whiskey exports to India totaled $8.8 million in 2024, and India was the 23rd largest market. American spirits makers have for long called India's tariffs prohibitive. Joining us right now is the President and CEO of Distilled Spirits Council of the United States, Chris Swonger. Chris, thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. First of all, give us a sense of how bourbon whiskey makers in America are reacting to this development.
Really excited, and thanks for having me. On behalf of the Distilled Spirits Council and American whiskey makers, India is such an amazing marketplace and the largest whiskey market in the world. So really, we're excited about the opportunity, and with much appreciation with Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, this is a great step forward. Great step forward for consumers, a great step forward for Indian consumers, certainly, to be able to explore and try American whiskey. But at the same time, it's a great step forward for American whiskey distillers, too.
Right. I would also like to ask you, how do you see this increasing overall bourbon whiskey exports to India?
Well, we know you take the U.S. and the EU. In 1997, the U.S. and the EU agreed to zero tariffs for EU distilled spirits and American distilled spirits. And we saw tremendous growth for both EU distillers and American distillers. And that's what fair and reciprocal trade can create, a win-win for both markets. And most importantly, this will be a win-win for American consumers, hopefully to try Indian whiskey products and Indian distilled spirits. But at the same time, on behalf of American distillers, we're happy that this is a positive step in the right direction.
Right. What would be the wish list? For example, currently, the Indian government has slashed import tariffs on bourbon whiskey from 150 to 100%. Is there an expectation or a recommendation that you have to the US government and the Indian government as far as whiskey tariffs on India go?
Yeah, with great appreciation of Prime Minister Modi and the relationship that he has established with President Trump. President Trump recognizes the benefits of fair and reciprocal trade. And we hope that this is a step forward where ultimately there'll be zero tariffs between the United States and India on distilled spirits products. And what we've seen when there has been zero tariffs, it enables both markets, the distilled spirits industry in both markets, to thrive. And we hope this is a positive step forward and look forward to working in close collaboration with the Trump administration and the Indian government, of course, with great respect, to keep moving forward. So it's a win-win for Indian consumers as well to try great American whiskey products.
It's also normal, Chris, for the Indian alcohol industry to seek equal access. And even now they're saying that we are fine with reduction on tariffs on bourbon whiskey. We only hoped it would have happened in a phased manner, but at the same time, we would also look for equal market access. When it comes to issues in alcohol trade between the two countries, are there certain other non-tariff issues which you would also like to flag with regard to regulations, with regard to standards, which will be holding trade from the Indian side to America?
I think we'll be looking at that for sure. Certainly the tax rates in some of the provinces and states are extraordinarily high as well in India. So that's something that we'll be talking to the United States Trade Reps Office and the Trump administration about. And of course, we also want to hear and understand if there's any kind of trade barriers that Indian distillers might be having in the U.S. market. So it is, a principal viewpoint of President Trump is what he calls fair and reciprocal trade. And I think based on the tone and the tenor of the press conference between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, I think there is an opportunity, the geopolitical map of the world, the partnership between the United States and India is so significant on many other levels, and a great starting point and building block for these two great economic powers is to come to a positive agreement to make sure American and Indian distillers and American and Indian consumers can relish the best both of our countries have to offer.
Right. And not just bourbon whiskey. Are there other segments where you are seeking lower tariffs on other alcohol spirits?
I think the whiskey market is a big opportunity for sure, but America creates great rum, great vodka, great cordials and liqueurs, and just great products altogether. So we'll be looking at all of that and working in close concert with the Indian government and certainly the Trump administration, really to knock down any kind of trade barriers, because we know with our industry, and the example that I cite is the US and the EU, when there's zero tariffs and no trade barriers, the uniqueness of our distilled spirits industry is we're all interconnected. Assets are invested in India and vice versa, and we want to make sure that given the distinctive nature of whiskey products, both markets can really thrive as a result of fair and reciprocal trade.
Right. My final question, Chris, would be at a larger level. Now, this would be one of the earliest trade deals that Donald Trump would be signing in his second administration. What would be the larger significance of this trade partnership, of this trade deal with India once it is signed for the US industry as a whole, not just for the spirits and alcohol industry?
Well, just the economic power of these two great nations would be significant. And of course, I'm a passive observer of the relations between India and the United States. But I think with the leadership of Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, the bond and the friendship that has been established, so many great things can happen between these two economic powers for more job creation, economic vitality within both markets, whether it's agreeing on terms of great technology issues or space travel. This was just part of the narrative of the press conference between the Prime Minister and President Trump. And certainly, the American and Indian distilled spirits industry can be great benefactors of that. And let's just not forget about Indian consumers and American consumers enjoying and appreciation the products of our two great nations.
All right, Chris Swonger, thank you so much for joining us here on CNBC TV18, giving us your view on the Indian government's decision to reduce tariffs on bourbon whiskey and how the larger economic partnership between the two nations can be beneficial.